Hello, time to crush this lecture. So we're going to talk about fats v carbohydrates, what's better for weight loss. There's been a lot of research carried out into this area, and we're just going to show you a few bits and pieces from the research. The fats v carbs for dieting. And there's nothing that tends to divide the nutritional realm quicker and with more emotion than the old age argument that fat is better than carbohydrates or carbohydrates is better than fat. And many will swear that bone low fat is the key. And others are adamant that, carbohydrates are making people fat and sick. So who exactly do we believe? And it's not a case of who do we believe. It's about what the research and the scientific evidence is saying. And let's be honest, right? In terms of physiology, what happens in your body, you cannot apply common sense to that. You know what I mean? It's the body. It needs to be studied with a critical mindset, if you like. As I've just said, we don't need to believe anyone. So fats v carbs for diet and study number 1, and basically this was from Wu in 2012, and over 6 months he looked at diets which were low carb, low GI, so that's low glycemic index, and the Mediterranean diets. So weight loss diets such as low carbohydrate, low GI, glycemic load diets and the Mediterranean diet might be alternatives to conventional low-fat diets, especially for the short-term weight loss, but have great variability on long-term effects. So what that's saying is, yes, low-carb will work sort of short-term, but you've got to be thinking longer-term. And over 6 months, this study was carried out, and this is what they came up with. So the difference in weight loss among these diets is only around about 1 to 2 kilos or less, which appears to be of little clinical significance. Thus, overweight and obese people can choose many different weight loss diets on the basis of their personal preference. So this just goes to show that there isn't one set diet which is best. And right, okay, I want you to consider this. If I said to you over the next 6 months, I'm going to give you a low-fat diet, which you're going to hate, and at the end of that 6 months, the best you're going to get is maybe an extra 1 kilo of weight loss. What would you think? Would you go, well, 6 months for 1 kilo, which is what, just over 2 pounds? Or would you go, I tell you what, I'm willing to sacrifice that tasteless, bland diet for something a bit more tasty. Yes, I'm going to have that extra 1 kilo of weight. However, I'm going to be happier and I'm going to be able to diet more long term. So that's something to think about. And if you remember back to our nutritional pyramid, adherence was at the bottom. So fats v carbs for dieting, study number 2. And this comparison of weight loss among named diet programs in overweight and obese individuals from Johansson 2014 looked at data from 59 studies. So it looked at, it was a meta-analysis, so that's where they bring all of these studies together so we can get a better understanding of what's going on. And they looked at weight loss at 6 and 12 months with obese participants on the named diets. So they looked at low carb, moderate carb, low fat, where, basically the low carb was 40% carbohydrates or under, the moderate carb a little bit higher, and then the low fat, it was higher carbs and lower fat. This is what they came up with. Significant weight loss was observed with any low carbohydrate or low fat diet. Weight loss differences between the individual named diets were small. The ideal diet is the one that is best adhered to by the individuals, so long as they can stay on the diet as long as possible. So it goes back to what I've just said and what we mentioned on the early lectures. It's adherence. It's what's going to suit your lifestyle. It's what you can do every day and maintain it for the rest of your life. And we'll just take another look at another study on this slide. And this comes from the Obesity Energetics Body Weight Regulation and the Effects of Diet Composition. And this one had 32 controlled feeding studies. I think this was carried out over a good few years. But with controlled feeding studies, you're almost locked up in a prison type scenario, if you like. So there was no way these people could underreport calories, because let's be honest, when you track food on MyFitnessPal, there is a margin for error. And if you remember back to slow metabolism lectures, it wasn't a case of she had a slow metabolism, it was a case of that she was underreporting and she wasn't tracking calories properly. So the controlled feeding studies eliminate all of that. And they kept calories and protein the same in the studies. And if you remember, protein has the most profound effect on sort of body composition. So we need to keep protein the same in both studies to get an accurate reading. This is what they found. For all practical purposes, a calorie is a calorie between controlled isocaloric, should I say, which is the same amount of calories in each meal. Diets varying in the ratio of carbohydrates to fat. So essentially what we're saying is calorie balance is what matters the most when it comes to losing weight. Forget about whether it's low carb, high carb, low fat, whatever. It's what you can do 12 months a year pretty much. So just wrapping things up, both carbohydrates and fats are essential for optimal performance and health. Once we cover our basic needs to train and function, there is a huge range for fats or carbohydrates that we can enjoy. So what that's saying is, if we hit our guidelines, then we've got scope to be flexible around that. And as long as we eat within our calorie budget and avoid extremes, you are free to eat the diet you prefer and the one you can stick to. So that's the end of this lecture, and I hope that was useful. Toodles.